I loved season 3. It's been so much fun. But first I have to ask about just how season 2 ended, because it was such a huge twist that Martha gave birth to a baby girl. Everybody thought it was gonna be Bruce. Everybody was just shook by this news. What was your reaction when you read the script and found out that Martha has a daughter?
I wasn't as shocked by it as I think as most people have been. I don't know. It makes sense to me. I haven't really been filled in more than anyone else in terms of like Sam's identity and Sam's future. But yeah, I don't know. It felt natural that she would be a girl.
Yeah, and we get this great time jump here, 5 years. What was most interesting about picking up in this specific part of Martha's life? Because, your daughter has aged. We don't have to go through like the terrible twos and such. So you're moving along there, and we're seeing her and Thomas, in the middle of their marriage. It's not the newlywed phase is gone at this point.
Yeah. Well, it was really interesting having Jada, who plays Sam, come on to the set because we'd never anywhere. It's not really a kid show. There's not really room for that in the show. So it was like such a different energy to suddenly have this 8-year-old on the set. And I knew going into it that that would be quite different. And it was, but it was great. Jada fit in really, really well with me and Ben. And it was cool that, season by season 3 to have this sort of new energy and this sort of very hard turn in terms of like the daily life of like what Martha and Thomas are doing. Putting a kid in the middle of that situation just like really changed it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that because when you like compare Pennyworth to like season 1 to where the show is now, it feels completely different. The show's always evolving and it's always changing. Like as an actress, how like tantalizing is it that you never really the show's always evolving and it's never going to feel the same for too long.
Yeah, it's great. As you said, you never really know what you're going to get. I'm very bad at predicting where scripts are going, so I never know what's going to happen with those. Yeah, all of every season has really had its own distinct feeling, and I mean, I'm just really grateful for that. It definitely keeps it interesting in terms of playing. You never get too comfortable, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, you have some great scenes. This season, Martha and Thomas, they're having that strife, and a lot of it is because Martha, was still in the field, kind of. Why do you think that she can't leave that part of her life, behind? Because Thomas is really ready to just he like he's dying to be normal, but
Mhm.
you're as you say in the finale, like, hey, let's just be, fucked up together and have a good family that way. So can you
Yeah.
speak to just that element of her?
Well, I think that I think that Martha's like altruism is such a huge part of who she is, in a way that it isn't with Thomas. Not that he's not a good person, but I think that like that kind of like adventure side, but also helping people. I don't think Martha has much of a choice in terms of leaving that behind. It's just like who she is. She wouldn't be herself if it weren't for that. And I think Thomas finds that really hard to identify with because who he is happens to slot in much better with like a family dynamic. It's apart from the murdering his father of it all. that doesn't that doesn't fit in as nicely. um, but besides that, he's sort of just like who he is just better suited to that sort of convention in a way that it's not with Martha. And I think they reach a point by the end of season 3 where they're just sort of honest with each other and honest with themselves and closer than they've been throughout the seasons.
Yeah, what was your reaction to just, all the daddy issues Thomas is going through in season 3? Because it's just so wild that he pops his dad off in like the same alley that he eventually dies in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think like a lot of that, obviously I was reading it as the actor in the script, but Thomas, by the nature of it, Thomas is keeping it so separate from Martha that I didn't really have that much to do with it. I think that, it wouldn't be Martha's perspective because she's in it, but from my perspective, I felt for Thomas because I can sort of see why he did what he did, but then also like how torn he is between those two worlds. And yeah, I think Thomas had a rough go of it this season.
Yeah, definitely. And I like how the finales have been keeping this like marriage theme going for the past two seasons. Season
Yeah,
two ended Martha and Thomas. Season three sees Sandra and Alfred. But
yeah.
all these weddings happen when the world is just falling apart in the most ridiculous ways. Well, what do you think's so
Yeah.
romantic about like society collapsing that they just have to get married that instant?
I think I don't know. I think maybe in those moments, that's when people sort of cling to that kind of ritual because you don't know how much time you have and you want some sense of meaning and maybe normalcy. Yeah, I think it's pretty truthful to have people do these things that maybe don't make sense, but just like you can understand why people need them in those moments.
You've played Martha for like over 30 episodes now. What have you liked most about just her character development and, since season one to the woman she and mother she is now?
Yeah, I think what's been really fun to play about Martha is how much she changes and grows throughout the seasons because she just as a person has been through such a huge period of growth in her life. I feel like in season one, she was like really grappling with like trying to be important and get things done and make a difference and matter. And then in season two, she was more firm with what she was doing. So she was much more comfortable. And in season three, she was sort of uncomfortable again because she's in the middle of these two different worlds. Um, yeah, I just have really enjoyed how much she's gotten to grow. And I also think what's really fun about Martha is other characters expect her to be a certain way a lot of the time. And a lot of her actions are kind of like undermining that. Like she's kind of a strange person in a lot of ways. Um, but it's fun to yeah play with her sort of yeah, I don't know, undermining the other characters' expectations of her. She's very unpredictable. She's kind of a volatile character in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so many great scenes later in this season with yourself and Martha and Thomas. What have you really enjoyed about, going deeper into their relationship? Because, now we're past that like courtship phase, and it's
Mm.
very much like you're seeing the two different sides of them and what gels, what doesn't. How fulfilling has that been?
Yeah, it's been great. I always love filming with Ben, and yeah, the first two seasons, as you said, have been much more sort of I don't know, like they're like you said, they're sort of just the courtship, and now all of the scenes that we had together in season three, we're dealing with like how do their actions affect each other and their family unit and how do they work through that and those felt I don't know, I guess there's just like a sense of them being kind of more grounded in like a familiarity because that's something that we can relate to outside of a superhero show is like how are we working through issues in our family, how are we you know keeping who we are alive while also like making room for people we love. Yeah, that was fun to explore. It wasn't something we looked at all in the first couple of seasons with our relationship.
Yeah, and as the show's developed, it definitely does feel more like a superhero show. Now we're seeing
Mhm.
like these proto superhumans emerge. how fun is this time period where, we have these anomalies popping up, but it's not like everybody, knows a superhero around the block. It's not like the modern day where, it's so well known.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's cool. I think like Bruno's described it as sort of like, they're starting to be superheroes, but they're still a bit kind of crap because haven't worked out all the kinks with them yet. So that's really cool. You don't really see that. That's just another way that Pennyworth is like really serving as a prequel, because it's not just showing the birth of the relationship with Thomas and Martha and Alfred, but it's also showing the birth of this kind of like superhuman world, but working out the kinks of it because it's new.
Yeah, and another really cool aspect, and we saw this over the first two seasons, but Bruno's talked about the V for Vendetta connection, and this season has the Guy Fawkes masks, and there's a little bit more going into that, just the state of disarray England's getting into. How fun have you liked that side element? Because it's very nice how it never overtakes the main plot, but you can kind of see it brooding in the background, and it's nice to to pay reward people for paying attention.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, in a lot of my scenes, it didn't really have a lot to do directly with what Martha was dealing with, except then in the last couple episodes, me, the actor, and Martha, the character, was really seeing it all kind of blow up with, like people running around in the streets, killing other people, there being explosions, cars on fire. That was like kind of like as shocking for me as it would have been for Martha.
I bet. And then my last question for you, this season I was streaming on HBO Max. How great has it been that there's such a large install base that are coming to the show? They were able to binge the first two seasons. Now they're going on this wild ride with the rest of the fans. So how cool is it seeing a larger fan base come to Pennyworth?
It's great. We're all, really excited about it. Um, I think that the way we worked on Pennyworth for three seasons has sort of never really changed. It's always just kind of felt like our show that we come back to. And we're very excited to share season three with people. But the filming of it didn't feel hugely different, which was nice.